Welcome to Film Independent Presents, our year-round screening and Q&A series, now virtual. I'm Brian Sheehan from Film Independent. Thank you so much for joining us to talk all things Emperor. First off, I'd like to thank some of our ardent supporters, our lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and our screening partner, Vision Media. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button towards the bottom of your screen, and hopefully we can get to it towards the end of the Q&A. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest moderator for today, Variety's Clayton Davis. And Clayton, please take it from here.
Hello, thank you, Brian, and hello to everyone out there. I hope everyone's safe and well and listening accordingly. There's always a good place to start. And I am so honored to be here with this fantastic panel, starting with our co-writer, director, and producer, Mr. Mark Amin. Hello, Mark.
Hi.
All right, and we have producers Cami Winikoff. Hello, Cami.
Hi.
Reginald Hudlin, a little legend man that I admired for so long. It's good to see you, sir.
Same here. Absolutely. Good to see you, Clayton.
All right, and then the performance you saw in the film, the one who kills it, Mr. Dayo Okeniyi.
There you go. I love it.
Dance on
you
it.
See?
Okeniyi. There you go.
Yes.
No, thanks for being with me today. I always like to just start here. It's always an important place to start. How's everyone doing? Like, how's everyone doing?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I must say.
Given the circumstances, we are doing good and we are very lucky.
Yeah.
Well put. Well,
Awesome.
That's
Great.
right.
And to our
the new
audience
year
also.
starts on the 21st.
That's what I love that.
Right there. Again, for everyone that's watching, if you have any questions, please put them in the box, and we'll be getting to them right when I'm done with my part, and then I'll give some of those to our talent here. So, Mark, I want to start with you. You produced so many films over your career. You directed a short long ago, and then this is your outing. You're big coming to, you decided to get behind the camera in a different way. Why now? Why this film?
I had been honestly thinking about, when I was producing, there were several projects that I actually wrote the story or script for. And then finally, maybe I would say about 3-4 years ago, I started seriously thinking about directing a film. Maybe longer, I would say more like 5 years ago. But I just couldn't, I mean, I'm a little bit on the older side, as you know. I didn't want to do a movie just because I want to direct a movie. My passion wasn't so much about being a director, it was more about the story that I really cared and touched me, I want to do. And a few friends in the industry said it, and I had, came to the conclusion that, if I'm going to direct, it has to be something that really, really touches me and instinctively and emotionally comes from my heart. And I had come across this story and I lived with it for years. And finally, I just decided, okay, this is the story I want to tell. I want to direct this movie, and I don't care what anybody says or anybody thinks. I'm just going to, this is a story really I feel very strongly about, and I want to tell it.
Awesome. Reginald, for you, sir. I'm just going to do a quick little run through here. Django Unchained, Marshall, Black Godfather, just some of the great things that you've touched, over your career. And you just
currently streaming.
Safety.
Oh wait, Django, they got you an Oscar nomination. Don't think I didn't peep that. So what has it? I mean, listen, like Frederick Douglass, a story of any Black stories are always fighting to get told in this industry. Why do you continue to come back to it? Why do you feel that people just need to see it, especially in our community, Black and Brown community, that really don't know these stories a lot because education system is not created equal?
Yes. Well, the thing is, it's interesting. There's a certain amount of pushback that the Black community can have about stories around the topic of slavery. and I understand it. You know, there's a certain exhaustion to torture porn. But when people say, I don't want to see a slave movie, they're actually sort of misspeaking. They don't want to see a bad movie. And there's been a lot of bad movies over the years. And the kind of stories that I want to see are stories of liberation, stories of freedom, stories of people fighting back and putting foot to ass. And I mean, that's what I felt when Quentin Tarantino approached me about helping him make Django, which is an amazing movie that's beloved by a lot of people. And I mean, when Mark sent me the script for this movie, I'm like, wow, this is an incredible story. It definitely needs to be told, and it fits that same template. It's a liberation movie. It's a freedom movie. It's the stories. Even look, there's textbooks in Texas where they describe people who are enslaved as guest workers, right? So there's horrific misinformation. But the last part of the stories they're ever going to tell are, as Mark said, the hundreds of thousands of people who escaped from slavery, who fought back from slavery. And this story and the incredible entities that Shields Green met along the way are so incredible. I just thought, well, gosh, if Mark wants to make this movie, then I want to help him make this movie. So it's a project that I was very excited to be involved in.
Awesome. Cami, so you get this call, or you hear about this project. What attracted you to it? Why did you get involved with it?
So I've been with Mark for some time now, and he's had this idea for a while, and I was kind of in the background, maybe in his ear a little bit, like, we got to make this movie. We got to make this movie. This movie, I think that what really made me passionate to tell this story is that it's a story, it's kind of a universal story. I mean, I don't mean to undermine the fact that this is Shields Green's story, a story about slavery, but it is a universal story in that it is a story of resistance. It's a story that lets you know that one man, one person, the difference that that one person can make. And I think that that's incredibly empowering, to tell a story that feels this inspiring, and have it be specifically about an average guy who started this movement.
Absolutely. And Dayo, I really want to bring kind of the point I was making with Reginald here for a moment. Shields Green, I don't think is a household name in the Black community. I don't, people have heard of Frederick Douglass, they hear names like this, but Shields Green may not be the household name that the Black community knows. How did you approach this role in taking it on, and what attracted you to the part, and how did you prepare for it?
Right. Honestly, it came through, the usual channels. The script came via my manager and my agents, and we read it. And it's funny because I remember having a conversation with my team initially saying, I don't know if I particularly want to do a slave movie or play this thing. I feel like the pioneers have done it for us already. And honestly, I honestly think it's one of those lies we performers tell ourselves, because the truth is, there are infinite stories from that era that haven't been told yet. And it wasn't till, actually reading the story and seeing who it was about and going, whoa, why don't I know about this? And almost the urgency that this story needs to be told. People need to know about this guy, and people need to know about thousands of people just like Shields that exhibited courage light years beyond their time and did things within their time that a lot of us couldn't fathom doing today. And they fall in the cracks of time. They fall in the cracks of history. And so, yeah, I was like, oh man, I really biting my words and saying, oh, I don't want to play a character from this era anymore. But the truth is that it's our story. It's the story of Black people on this earth. And the moment you say a human being story isn't worth telling anymore, nah, that's almost blasphemy spiritually. So just went about the audition process, and just tried to put forward what I thought was you know, a respectable interpretation of this character. There wasn't YouTube back then. So it's not like you could just go Google images of, you know, Shields Green and see what he spoke like, or how he walked and what his cadence was. So a lot of it was just doing research on PTSD and on trauma, and how that affects a person, and what they know about their trauma and what they don't know. The stuff that is just in the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they maintain eye contact. It's boring behavioral stuff that we actors do hours of research on, but for a character like this, it's like, man, and literally just praying, for inspiration. Just like, Shields, if you're up there, honestly, just embody me with your spirit and just let me live this moment as truthfully as possible. And then when you get on set and that camera's in your face, just try and forget all that and just hope that all that research pays off. But yeah, it was definitely had to win this role, go into a room with Reggie and Mark, looking very sternly.
Yeah.
And as soon as you're done,
play it off. You did a good job.
yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that.
So
also, can you imagine those days before YouTube? Those crazy times before YouTube was around.
Exactly.
They don't read a book to like
actors,
learn about people.
Yeah, you have to go to the library to do some research. Imagine that.
Blowing your mind right now, the audience.
Right.
So Mark, I have a question for you. Obviously, you have friends in high places, because then you went and pulled the likes of Bruce Dern, Harry Lennox, Michael T. Williamson. You know, just first outing, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna get all the big dogs in Hollywood, and we're gonna do this movie. Talk about casting and the authenticity. And big shout out to Naturi, who plays Sarah Green, just incredible. Please, Mark.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I'm sorry, can you talk about casting the film and assembling the actors that you did?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to be really honest with you, being a first-time director, the subject being about slavery, and like Reggie said, I got some pushback saying, you're not African-American, why are you making a movie about something that should be made by an African-American? And I just felt like, you know, it's a human story. To me, I did not see this as an African-American story. I saw it as a heroic story. What really, it's more than anything, single thing that inspired me about Shields Green is that he actually made it to freedom. Frederick Douglass offered to send him to Canada, give him papers, send him to Canada to live happily ever after, because at that point, the Fugitive Slave Act had been passed, and you could not live in the northern states anymore. And he decided to come back and fight, knowing that this was a suicide mission, knowing that everyone is telling him, you know, this is crazy. So then despite all these things, when it came to casting, you know, being a first-time director, I just thought the odds were not very high. And to be honest with you, it's not about pulling any connections or anything like that. I think it was the power of the story. And a shout out to our great casting director, Mary Verneau, who got these people to read it. And we didn't honestly have a budget for paying people. So everyone who did this movie, just like Reggie, like Dayo, who showed more passion than I've ever seen anybody, just persistent about it. Everyone who did it because they loved the script and they loved the story. So James Cromwell also knew so much about the history. His father apparently played John Brown in a movie that hadn't turned out so well. So it was this cast came together. Now, you know, like Dayo was obviously. I have to give him credit to I just felt like the first time, I don't know if I remember, we had a FaceTime call first time, and I just felt his passion. And I've said that he flew on his own dime from New York here to meet and audition. And we said, look, and he was so good in every aspect of it, so perfect for the role. And as it turned out, during the production, he contributed so much also, as did otherwise. James Cromwell knew so much about history, contributed so much. Harry Lennox, again, amazing. I mean, first time I had dinner with him, he said, okay, my God, this is like Frederick Douglass, you know? And there are a few other casts like Bruce Dern. He said he was a fan of Levi Coffin, who was considered the president of Underground Railroad. And Naturi, again, really, really came because she said she really loved the story. Kat Graham, who's, big star in her own world. All of these people came because of the story, because I honestly didn't have a track record as a director. I think they just everyone responded. And I think we got very lucky that we got such an amazing cast together.
Awesome. This question is to anyone. Anyone can feel free to jump in and talk about it. One thing that really struck me, and I didn't know a lot about Shield Screen myself, especially in this time, in this period that we live in, which is very divided. Robert E. Lee, in there, and hearing his name come to life again in the last 4 years, Confederate statues, and then fast forward to 48 hours ago, like there is, it all provides some visual context. As I believe a lot of people support like these Confederate monuments, whatever, without really having the context or any kind of history behind it. This provides a visual aid for that. Was that part of the goal here, was to really tell a story that people can then now picture America in its, I won't say darkest days, but I mean, we're giving it a good run for its money, but anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the first movie shown in the White House was D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And Woodrow Wilson, after seeing the movie, came out and gave this quote to the press. He said, "It's history written in lightning," which is a really great turn of phrase. I mean, it was a lie, but it is an accurate description of the power of movies. Somehow our educational system has the amazing ability of taking all the excitement out of history. We in the entertainment business do the opposite. We bring the excitement of the event to life for audiences more than a lot of textbooks do. So yes, I look, these fights are generational. We have to keep telling these stories over and over again. And much like, people tell stories from the Holocaust, and there's all these different angles in which to tell these stories. Having, when you explore the world of America and the system of slavery, you realize there's so many different stories, and they all need to be told because they're all very different, and they all speak to who we are as a nation today. I mean, the fact is, when the founders created this nation, they wrote this beautiful contract called the Constitution, and it was a lie. And they had no intent on living up to the idea of all men being created equal and all that stuff. And what Black America has done for the entire length of the history of this nation is forced America to live up to that contract and to force America to be its best self, which is including what's happened over the past month. So this is a story of Black America forcing America to live up to its contract.
And also, I mean, I want to say one of the things, I mean, Mark's a huge history buff, and I think it was really important for him to portray things as they were. But I find for this story, one of the things that it's just so fascinating that you have white men and Black men working together. You do see bad white men, and there is even in the story bad Black man. But what's really powerful and inspiring is you've got these men that start the resistance and perpetuate it forward and move our society and our culture forward. But then you have this unity in this story. And I think even in these dark times, we can find that people of all different races and backgrounds can work together. And I think that that's always inspiring.
Anyone else want to add to that? If not, I'm gonna go to my next question, which is to you specifically, Dayo. Did a little research on you. Besides having a great fashion sense and outdoing me in shirts today, Uh, you were born in Nigeria,
Yes.
and I feel in American culture, especially Black America, I don't know if we get enough of the sharing of the perspective of slavery in terms of a dialogue between Black Americans and people who were able to stay in Africa and live in Africa and their lineage
Right.
is found in Africa. Um, can you talk about I guess, the responsibility or your thoughts on that of being able to tell this American story from, that perspective?
For sure. It's funny, like you can't get African American without African in the title. So obviously we are one, and we are long distance cousins. And it's so funny. I started a company myself called Positive Vibes Only, and a big part of that is pulling that diaspora closer and closer together, because clearly over the centuries we've been pulled apart, physically and psychologically in a different way. But people also forget, like, I'm from Nigeria, like you said, and we got our independence in 1960. So when you guys were going through the civil rights movement, we were just getting our independence. So it's not the same experience, because when the British left, they left, right? They left us and went, you guys take your country, do what you want to do. So to an extent, it was a true independence. And obviously we've gone through our own turmoils with dictatorships and things of that nature, which is a different kind of abuse of power. But the psychological trauma that race plays on the human mind is a different thing entirely. And I'm 32 now, and I moved to America when I was 15. So technically I've now lived in America longer than my formative years in Nigeria. Which, this is not to take away from the fact that I do consider myself a Nigerian. Like I said, my formative years were spent there. But America lets you know quite quickly that you're Black and you're where you're socially falling the ladder as soon as you get to this country. Like, it's right away. It's cold water, but you play catch up pretty quickly. And it's just pulling all these experiences together and again trying to create something that lives authentically. There are African American descendants of slaves, and I do believe we share DNA. And I do believe that it was a privilege to play this role and to try to live up to that character, and his descendants in a really truthful and authentic way. So yeah, it's a huge burden. It's a huge weight on the shoulder, but it was definitely one I felt prepared to take, and one that I did not take lightly.
Awesome. One last question before we get to the Q&A portion. Again, for people that are watching, please throw your questions down below. And we're going to get to those in a sec. What is your one hope for audiences that will discover this? What do you want them to take away? What is the message that you want that isn't just typically what we've seen a lot in the attempt of cinema, is like, slavery was bad, people survived it, and it's a miracle they did. We're like a lasting impact. What do you want to, I think, Cami, I think you might have spoken a bit on this already, but what is that theme, that oomph that you want people to take away with them? And anyone can feel free to answer.
I think slavery is slavery and racism is a cancer. It is a cancer that for some reason took a serious root in this country. And there are people who have been fighting to get rid of this thing. And it's so funny, when we made this movie, it was a little bit right before the craziness that took place, obviously, the last couple of years. So I don't think anybody was clairvoyant to say, oh, this movie will be crazy relevant in 2019 and 2020. And it just ended up that way. But it's just an affirmation that movies like this have to be told to remind people, because we forget, even us ourselves, saying, oh, some Africans going and African Americans going, we don't want to see movies from that time. We want something new. But the cancer is still alive. And that's what this movie, I want people I wanted to weaponize people to get out there and to live consciously knowing that this demon that's been swept under the rug, it's still there. And we have to pounce this thing out with every ounce of energy we have. But that's me.
Well said. Anyone else?
I, for me, first of all, even though this movie has a lot of messages and themes, it's historically very interesting because it brings together so many historical characters of the Civil War. If you look at it, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, Levi Coffin, Shields Green, even Robert E. Lee. I mean, it's not very often you see one spot where all these people converge, and they did in real life. I know we've taken a lot of creative liberties in terms of storytelling. So even though I did not want to make a message movie, I really wanted to make a action, adventure, Western ride that would be gripping and people would want to watch it regardless of how they felt about any of the themes or subjects. Having said that, to me, there were two things for me wanted the audience to get out of it. One is to get people to know this history a little bit more, bring attention to the parts of history, because we all have this very general idea of Civil War, but in terms of very specifics of what happened, what the mindset was at the time, who does, I think very many people don't know. And I know, in fact, we had a technical expert, a guy who was an expert in Civil War history. And when we were shooting the movie, he said, Mark, if you pull this thing off, this movie is going to be shown in schools for people to learn. So I thought, oh, that's great, even though I'd never wanted to think. And the other thing is for me to put the interests of the society and humanity at large over your own personal interests. And this is something we are dealing with right now. To be honest with you, I deal with some of my friends actually who are supporting Trump. I said, why are you doing it? They say, oh, we know he's not a good guy. We know it's not his lies, but I like his policies. Well, what policies do you like? Oh, because he lowered taxes for me. And now you're saying that, look, I'm willing to sacrifice the country because I pay less taxes. So to me, the message that I want to get out there is that the wellness, the interest of society at large is bigger than our own interests. And for me personally, I come from Iran, going through a revolution and seeing how if you don't do that, you could lose the whole thing. I want to tell to these people who want to save taxes that if this whole system collapses, you will have no income so to pay any taxes on anyway. Anyway, so there's a little bit of political touch to this. Sorry, guys.
Saving on zero, still zero. All right, let me get to some questions. Thank you for that, Mark. Appreciate that. I got a question here from Pierce. It says, can you talk about the solid performance of James Cromwell as John Brown, as well as the great casting job? I mean, we touched on that already, but Reggie, I'll let you touch on James Cromwell, because Oscar nominee James Cromwell of Babe, mid-90s. I'm always gonna give a shout out. You're on mute, Reggie, in case you want you to start.
No, look, I'm a huge James Cromwell fan. I was a fan of his work, and then we got to work together on a couple of different projects, and I just thought, God, this is the coolest guy, a total pro. He brings an intelligence and a gravity and a classiness to everything he's involved in. So we worked together on a television project, then on Marshall. So I thought, well, and I knew, like when we finished the first time working together, he goes, oh, Reggie, by the way, I got to tell you about the time I was working with the Black Panther. And I was like, what? Black Panther?
Yeah.
And then he drove off. And I'm like, damn.
He's that guy. Yeah.
So I knew he would really respond to this material. So I thought, well, let's get him involved. And when he read the script, he goes, well, I have to play John Brown because my father played John Brown in Young Abraham Lincoln or one of those. So I was like, oh my God, this is where you go. It's bigger than us kind of fate energy. And you just got to give into that. And again, he did that same thing. He came onto the show. We had a very young cast, but just having him there just elevates everyone's playing ability. And again, and just a pleasure to be around. So
Awesome.
It's great.
All right, awesome. Brian McQuarrie asks, and this could be for anyone who wants to take it, can you talk about how you handled the violence? It is messy and ugly and real and impactful, but never gratuitous. And I guess probably Mark, I think you'd probably be the best one to take that as the filmmaker.
Yeah. For me, it was extremely important for this film to be grounded, because as you will see it, there's a lot of action and chasing and stuff like that. But we wanted to make sure everything is grounded, everything is real, because we're dealing with history. And I frankly, honestly, didn't pull any punches. I said, let's just do the action as real as we can. And that's what we did. We didn't go try to, I've seen in movies where people, they go and overplay the violence, they want to show all the blood and gore and everything. I didn't want to go there, but at the same time, I didn't want to pull back either. I want to say, okay, if this thing happened in real life, how would it be? What would it look like? And, you know, fortunately, it served us well. It came out. And I think a lot of it also, I know it's not directly, honestly related, because people don't think of violence, but I think performances had a lot to do with it. I think what I learned is that, you know, it's not just violence, any kind of action and everything. If the performance is right, the audience will get the right feeling. You don't need to splatter a lot of blood on the screen in order to get people to appreciate the violence. And I think the performances I honestly, as a first-time director, my biggest insecurity was performances. Because as a producer, you learn how to do everything on a movie. You know how to work with the camera, you know. But one thing as a producer, you don't really know as much, because how to talk to directors, to actors, how to get performances, because that's mostly is more of a private conversation between director and the actors. And I think I just got really lucky that we ended up with such a talented cast, and they were able to deliver that feeling of realistic violence without us having to resort to too much graphic stuff.
Awesome. And a question from Mr. and Mrs. Schumacher. I just see Schumacher. Shields Green is an unknown historical character. He almost seems as a superhero in the film. And Mark, I think you touched on this earlier, but Cami, if you want to jump in on this, is there going to be a strategy to get the film into high school or market it to younger audiences that may not be familiar with Green? So is there something active that's happening to get this in the hands of people who need it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now we're sort of in those standard windows of distribution, but it's definitely something that Mark's been passionate about. And we've had other films where we've been really successful in doing that. So I think, yeah, absolutely, with this film, it'll wind up there. We'll make sure.
Also, but this is a comment from Chris Schmidt. I hope it does happen, that this film is available for students in schools. It is a story that needs to be told. And congratulations again to all of you. That's from Chris Schmidt out there. Thank you, Chris. Dayo really appreciates it.
Right now, just
with his great
I do.
All right. So as we get ready to wrap, sorry. Go ahead.
No, say, if you want to see, I mean, it's on Stars, so that's the place to go right now to see the film.
Yes. Tell all your friends that subscribe to Stars to watch it there, so that you can share in the experience. All right. So my final question to you all, and I think kind of where do we go from here? Kind of question, but as you know, the story unfolds, and Dayo, I think you really touched on this when you said, you know, slavery, that ugly part of history is swept under the rug.
Yeah.
But it's not invisible. It's still there. There's a lump in our rug, and all someone has to do is just pull the rug back, and then you know, make a mess, and bring something like this back. And I think you know, when you were talking about, you know, Nigeria, you just got your independence in the 60s. You know, 60 years ago was the civil rights movement. You know, just 60 years ago. You know, 150 years ago. You know, like everything seems like it's far, but it's not. It's still right here.
Nope.
For the future, what can we do to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself? Because that is the saying I hear so much, that we're always doomed to repeat ourselves. But how can we fight against that to ensure that our liberty, our freedoms, everything we fought so hard for continues to go on?
There are a couple of things. Number one is you have to acknowledge the problem. And I think Reggie spoke about something very, very important, which is that there are textbooks in the South that do not acknowledge slavery. So what is happening is there are Americans that are growing up with two completely different understandings of what happened in this country. And as long as that is the case, we will never be able to reconcile and move on, right? As long as we have Black history and then what we call American history, we can never reconcile. All history is American history. We have to be able to look at it, even the ugly parts of it, and I almost look a little bit to the Germans, and the atrocities of World War II and the way they own it, right? There are Holocaust museums, and the nation is almost in a perpetual state of seeking forgiveness from itself. And I think America has to eventually go into that place. There are conversations of, look at the Reconstruction era. I think that was the place where it could have really happened, where we go, okay, we really did this. We disenfranchised generations of people, and we could, through some kind of a program to give back, right? Retribution. We could fix some of these problems, right? 40 acres and a mule, right? Of course, it's beyond that now. It's more of a spiritual thing, but to me, that doesn't happen until this country agrees on what our history is, right? We talked about it being like, stuff that's been swept under the rug. If I would give Mr. Trump anything, I would say what he did was he pulled that rug up. The last 4 years was him showing this country what is really, really going on in the hearts of people. And you take the good with the bad. And I think when you look at that, what you say is, okay, this problem is still here. And what can we do to really turn things around? And I think that's step one. Step two is just about our education system, right? We got to just have one view on history, right? Usually they say the victors write the history, but not in the case of America, man. We're just getting Confederate flags taken down from state to state in 2019. That's insane. So yeah, to me, that's where it comes from, is agreeing on our history. And once we agree on that history, then start to somehow seek forgiveness from it. Reparations is a good start. I definitely will not. I got no problem saying that publicly. Reparations. Yeah.
I like Dayo.
Yeah, the Germans did
well
it.
dressed and just a genius, man. Just killing it on all fronts. Can act.
Thank you.
Just like do everything, man. Listen, Mark, Cami, Reggie, Dayo, congratulations on the success of the film, bringing the story to audiences. Continue to tell these stories. It's very important that they continue to be told. And we can all just hope that. Don't make the movie about this time in America. Just wait till I'm gone, and then you can do it like way down the line, right?
Yeah.
I saw that tweet the other day. I said, no one, any filmmakers right now, I need you to wait till I'm dead for this week.
Too soon.
I need to be
#, too soon.
Too soon. No, don't think about it. Like, no, stay away, Spielberg. It was scrappy, man.
He already made the movie. It's called War of the Worlds.
All right, true. Yeah, true. Again, tell everyone to see Emperor. It's on Stars, streaming on Stars. Thank you for that, Cami.
And also, may I say also, it's on all the VOD platforms as well, like on iTunes, Google Play, Prime, Amazon Prime, and it's only $6.
Only $6. Everyone got $6. You do that. Rock it. No, thank you, everyone. Thank you again. Actually, wait, I think I think we're good. Yep. So thank you again for everything. And please, everyone, be safe. Thank you for watching Film Independent, this Q&A, and we'll see you soon.